Boom. Hi, Instagram Live. How are we today? I'm trying something new today. I've got a little microphone. What's up, Jerry Butler? Hey, Joby Cat. Hey, Kylie. Kyle, sorry. Can you guys hear me? And does it sound clearer? Is it this little mic? Because I've got a microphone today, and I'm seeing if the microphone picks my voice up better than regular Instagram. What does it say? Does it sound, can you guys hear me better? Sandy, how you doing? What's up, Gregory? Question is this: does my voice sound more alert here, or does it sound more alert here? Can you tell? Is there a difference? Let's see. Hello, Camilla. Wow, we got a nice little turnout right out the top. Let's see. Hello, Camilla. Here, will you go tell me? Can you go in another room and tell me if it's any different? There is no difference, I'm thinking. All right, so this is what it is with them, without, and then this is what it is with. Does it create any proximity of my voice? Sorry, guys, we're doing a little. This is the exact same thing. Okay. All right, guys. So welcome to the fourth installment of the Polaha Chautauqua. You guys have been joining me for 4 weeks of quarantine now, which is insane that we are all living in our houses for 4 weeks. And our life is completely different than what it was a month ago. And every day we get up and we have a routine in our house here. And we do our thing. And we have our life. And then at the end of the night, we watch the news to kind of check up on what's happening in the world. And I don't know about you guys, but about 2 days ago, I woke up and I was gripped with, and if you're following my little haikus on Twitter, I wrote this thing where I said, death is scary. I said, but that's okay because Jesus conquered it. And I woke up and I was afraid. I was genuinely concerned for my own health, but then also for just people, you know? And it was one of those moments where I thought about when I was a little kid. So now today's going to be deep. It's going to be a little deeper. And I need to prepare you guys that. You all know as an actor, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to read you guys a story a little later on. And I'm going to get a little deep with you guys. And so I'm going to tell you guys a story. You've been so amazing. Last week, if you tuned in, I had incredible guests come onto the show. Libby was a fan favorite. Destiny and Bailey were fan favorite. They were singing. I had beautiful poems read, quotes read, people who were just sharing their hearts. And I got cut off. I was about to sing you guys a little song on my mandolin, and I got cut off on Friday last week. So I do want to tell you guys a story today. And it's going to be a long one, so just brace yourself. So I'm going to change up the venue a little bit, and it's going to be more me just chilling and talking, and maybe we'll open up the lines at the end if that's okay. So woke up the other morning and was genuinely afraid. Was literally like, I don't know how many people would know this or why you would know this, but I had my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago yesterday, the 9th of April, 2018. And my wife and her brother did this really sweet thing, and they buried him on some family property. It's been in their family for like 100 years, literally. And her brother had heard about this tradition of the grave diggers would just dig a big hole, but then you would lower the casket in, and the family would put the dirt on the casket. And so it was with probably about 104 fever in springtime in Florida that I was shoveling dirt onto my father-in-law's casket, and was pretty sick the whole week, was doing all the arrangements the whole week, and came back to LA, found out I had pneumonia. It was interesting because it was about a week or two after that I found out that I was going to shoot Nocturnal Paradise with Joe Wagner. Went to Fiji, which is this beautiful tropical place, but I still had junk in my lungs, and it was just taking a long time for me to heal. Prior to that, I was doing this unbelievable, like 3 mile a day. I'd run to the beach, I'd swim, I did 100 push-ups, I was doing bear crawls for 300 yards. Like, it was an insane, I was in peak condition. So I went from being in peak condition, like the most athletic I'd ever been, to having pneumonia at 40. And then I healed up and things were okay. And then in September, I got sick again. And this time, I got so scared that I felt like I was going to drown. My nasal passages were so fluid. I had this cough that was literally, went to a doctor, had a CT scan, had the whole thing. And so my lungs, and that was in September, my lungs were basically still healing. So all that to say, that was a huge, long story to say. Woke up Thursday morning, and I was feeling a little nervous, and it reminded me of the year 1986. Now, in the year 1986, I experienced death for the first time. My aunt, my mom's sister, died, and shortly thereafter was followed by my great-grandmother, my mom's grandmother, my grandmother's mom. And so my grandma, in that summer, lost her daughter and her mother. And I was in the kitchen when my grandfather got the phone call from the sheriff. It was a sheriff down in Morro Bay, California. We were living in Reno, Nevada. And my granddaddy answered the phone, and his face, he was a big jovial guy. He was a barman. He was a carpenter and a barman. And he said he was listening to the sheriff on the phone and just kind of turned ashen. And it got real serious. And we found out, where she was and how it happened. And I heard the news as it was being relayed to my mom. My grandma was out shopping, my nanny, who you guys have seen dance here on Instagram. And my little nanny came home, and she was carrying 2 brown paper bags of groceries. And she saw our faces. She saw my grandpa's face, and she saw my mom's face, and maybe she saw mine. And she knew that something had gone terribly wrong. And she just melted. It was like she poured into the ground, into the brick driveway. And, it was one of those things where, as a little boy, that struck me so deeply that I was convinced for about a year after that, from that moment on, all the way through the next year, that every time my parents were going to leave the house, I was just convinced that they were going to die. And I was convinced that it was the last time I was going to see them. And they would drop me off to Little League, and I'd cry, and, I had this whole thing. So all that to say, I had a very violent and aggressive and a deeply stinging and a deeply penetrating experience with death. And I was 9 years old. Well, let's cut to the year 1997. Okay, I'm a sophomore. I'm at NYU, and a friend of mine, Catherine Smith, who's this awesome girl that I went to high school with, she was going to another college nearby, and she came to visit me for the weekend. And I took her out on the town. It was October, and we were like, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's have a nice night. And so we listened to a little Lou Reed, Perfect Day, before we left. Walked up, I was in Broome Street, walked up Lafayette past the Public Theater, hit 14th Street, made a left, walked all the way to this amazing Irish bar there, had a pint of Guinness, each of us. Then we had another pint of Guinness, because why not? We were young, and we were in New York City, and the whole night was ours. Now, I was dressed in a leather sheep shear jacket. If you know what that is, it's where it's leather, thick leather on the outside, and then wool, like white sheep wool on the inside. I had a white polo shirt on. I had corduroy pants, and I used to hike a lot in high school, and I had these Red Wing boots that were all single leather, brown, beautiful hiking boots. Way overdressed for the city. Consequently, Catherine was in jeans and a t-shirt, and she borrowed my windbreaker and tennis shoes, and so she was underdressed for the evening. Again, this was late October, so we're nearing winter, late fall in New York City. And at one point, we left the bar, we keep walking, we found some rolls of cardboard on the streets, and we're sword fighting with these cardboard rolls, and we're having fun. I'm on the outside, she's on the inside, so she's here where the buildings are here, Catherine's here, I'm here, the cars are here, and we're singing a little song, come, baby, 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 come, come. I don't know. We were singing some little goofy song. And out of nowhere, I turned and I got onto this side of her. And I verbalized, I said, I don't know why, Catherine, but I just feel better on this side. And so we kept walking. And then about a block later, I hear this tick, 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 tick. And before we know it, the store grate, so in New York City, if you're familiar with it or if you're familiar with any big cities, there's sidewalks and they have those metal grates that open up and you could go into the basement. So it's the basement access to restaurants and any kind of storefront buildings. So there was a row of restaurants, a row of storefronts, and there were grates. And I hear this ding, 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 ding. And the grate opens up and we are engulfed in a fireball. And before I know it, the fireball disappears and then we hear this noise. And the next thing I know, I see one of those pizza delivery boxes, like literally just go like slow motion past my face. My hands go up and this scar right here, you can see it. This on my hand, there's a scar. There's a scar on my wrist that you can see, and there's a bunch of other. Anyway, that's where I got hit. And what happened is the fireball went back into the store, tore through, like went into the basement, tore through the restaurant in like an eddy, and then blew out the storefront window. Caught me, but because I had moved, had eclipsed all of the glass from hitting Catherine. So she was fine. And here's the other amazing thing about this story. So here we are, okay, in the restaurant. Just imagine that the side of your phone is the restaurant. This blast happens over here, so boom. Instead of me hitting her and us like tumbling into the street, and we're on 9th Avenue and there could be traffic just getting run over by cars, there's a red light, so there's no traffic in this street. The block is empty. She ends up on her feet facing the Empire State Building, facing north. I end up standing on my feet facing the World Trade Towers, facing south. Now this is an artery, the jugular splits open, and there's like, so your veins, so this was spurting blood. This is blood. This is spurting blood. I'm like pouring out blood. I turn, I see somebody. They're yelling into the basement of the store. I see Catherine. She's got some blood on her face, and I say, is that your blood or my blood? Find out it's hers. She got nicked a little bit. Finally, a cab drives by. I run. I pound on the window. The window's covered in blood, and the guy rolls it down. He's like, I've got a fare, and he drives off. Another car pulls up. It's God bless them. It was a car filled with Japanese tourists, and there was 5 of them in this little white sedan with white, the seats were white in the car, and I thought to myself, I'm going to bleed all over this. It's going to be the bloodiest car. And $100 says they don't know where they're going, and I don't know where I'm going. And as we're debating, because Catherine had already gotten in the car, and they were like beckoning me to get in, and we're doing this whole thing. And as I'm doing that, the taxi pulls around, and the guy gets out, and he says, you know what? You're taken care of. He's going to take you to St. Vincent's Hospital in New York City, which no longer exists. And the guy took us down. As I was going down, this was open so much that I could take a wad of paper towel and just stick it in there. I mean, it was this giant gap. Walked in. They immediately saw how bloody we were. They sat me down in a room. They immediately put me in a room. These nurses and doctors were unbelievable. My mom got on the phone. She's unbelievable. She gets make sure a plastic surgeon comes. 80 stitches right there, 120 stitches total. Later that night, the fire marshal came. They wanted to interview us. And they said that you should be dead, like you should have been decapitated. The size of the glass was the size of Frisbees. It was a 1/4 inch thick, it flown across 6 lanes of traffic. He's like, it's a miracle that you're alive. Now, here's the weird part of this story. You guys know I'm a Christian. I post a lot of stuff about Christianity. And in our faith, my faith, there are demons and there are angels. Well, earlier that year, I was walking through Times Square, and I just felt this presence behind me. I felt like I was being followed. And I don't know what it was, but I turned, and as God is my witness, I saw this giant 2-story, what you only can describe as an angel. And I truly believe that God had put into my life this guardian angel for in that moment to protect me and Catherine. That God had put me to move to her left, to my right, so that I would eclipse the glass. We got knocked into the street, but it was almost like we were lifted and placed there. And so I believe that there is a God that loves us so intensely that he will protect a stupid kid and his friend who've had 2 pints of Guinness beer in the middle of New York City on a late October night in the fall of New York City. And while this coronavirus is just devastating this earth, we lost 16, I don't know what the death toll is, because a part of me just is kind of keeping it at bay. But I do know that it is a lot of people, and their mothers and their daughters and their fathers and brothers and their grandparents and their people that are loved and that have families. I saw there's the mass graves that are happening in the island off of New York City, and it's crazy. We're living in a time that is unprecedented, and as much as it's fun to, we've been having an awesome time, and next week we're going to jump right back into it. I want to hear you sing, and I want to hear poems, and I want to hear quotes, but I do want to take today, because it's Good Friday, I want to take today to read to you guys what is probably the most pivotal aspect of Christian faith. So, as a Christian, we believe that there was a guy named Jesus who came down from heaven, was born of Virgin Mary, was the Son of God, raised up, performed a ton of miracles, healed people, cast out demons. Then he was crucified today, 2,000 years ago, by the Roman guards, and was buried for 3 days. And then here's the craziest thing, that on Sunday, which is coming Easter, he rose again. And in doing that very specific moment of the narrative, of the Christ narrative, that resurrection from death back into life, what it says is that Jesus conquered death. And what that means to me is that this thing that is terrifying, this thing that kept me awake for a year of my life when I was 9 years old and literally brought me to tears because I thought I was going to lose my mom and dad every time they left the house. That this thing that was paralyzing to me, this thing that's crippling the earth, this thing that all of us one day we're going to have to walk down that road. We're going to die, each and every one of us watching this thing right now. And I'm not saying that in a pessimistic or a sad or a negative way, but we're all going to go there. That one moment was conquered by Jesus Christ. And what that gives me is just an indescribable amount of hope and joy and a peace that surpasses all understanding. I mean, it is one of the most extraordinary things. Sorry. Sorry. I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm just trying to tell you a story. But it is one of the most extraordinary things that I hold on to in my life. I've been redeemed by that hope and by that love and by that grace. I've been set free by that love and by that hope and by that grace. And it gives me just this unbelievable amount of confidence to move through the world, to know that God is in charge, no matter what happens. No matter what disease or virus is running around like a little demon across the face of the earth, that God is in charge. So I just bared it all to you guys. Now what I want to do is, after having said all that, I would like to just take the time today. Maybe some of you know this, maybe some of you hear this every week or every year, and it's just something that you're used to hearing. But in our calendar, Christmas is the celebration where little baby Jesus is born, and so we're super excited about that, and we give everybody a bunch of presents, and then everything kind of rolls out until Lent, Mardi Gras, which is the night before Lent starts, where you blow your mind up with alcohol and you get all naked. You do everything you don't want to be doing for the next 40 days because you're going to try to get it right for the next 40 days. Lent ends today, which is Good Friday. And Good Friday is the day that historically and biblically Jesus was crucified. So what I want to do to you today, or for you, or with you, is just simply read the story out of the book of Luke. There are 4 Gospels. Luke's tends to be, I don't know, it's the most dramatic. I guess it's the most artfully done. And so I wanted to read this story for you today. Because I think if you turn on the news and if you watch even a minute of television, it's terrifying. And the most hope that I could give you, that I can afford you, the greatest gift that I think I can give you today, my little Polaha Chautauqua, is just reading this story in my actorly voice. So I will encourage you to just sit with your phone and enjoy. So I'm going to begin in Luke chapter 23. So Jesus at this point has been taken out of the Garden of Gethsemane. He's been tried by the Sanhedrin, and they want him crucified, and so they take him to Pontius Pilate. So then they all took Jesus to Pilate and began to bring up charges against him. And they said, "We found this man undermining the law and the order, forbidding taxes to be paid to Caesar, setting himself up as Messiah King." And Pilate asked Jesus, "Well, is this true, King of the Jews?" And Jesus replied, "Well, those are your words, not mine." And Pilate told the high priests and the accompanying crowd, "Well, I find nothing wrong here. He seems harmless enough to me." But they were vehement. "He stirred up unrest among the people with his teaching, disturbing the peace everywhere, starting in Galilee and now all through Judea. He's dangerous. He's a dangerous man, endangering the peace." Well, when Pilate heard that, he asked, so he's a Galilean, which was his relief, because realizing that he properly came under Herod's jurisdiction, he passed the buck to Herod, who just happened to be in Jerusalem for a few days. Now, Herod was delighted when Jesus showed up. He wanted for a long time to see him. He'd heard so much about him. He hoped to see him do something spectacular. He peppered him with questions that Jesus didn't answer. Not one. Not one word. But the high priest and religious scholars were right there, saying their piece, strident in their accusations. Mightily offended, Herod turned on Jesus. His soldiers joined in, taunting and jeering. They dressed him up in an elaborate king costume and sent him back to Pilate. Now that day, Herod and Pilate became thick as thieves. Always before they had kept their distance from each other. Then Pilate called the high priest, rulers, and the others and said, "You brought this man to me as a disturber of the peace. I examined him in front of all of you and found there was nothing to your charge, and neither did Herod, for he has sent him back here with a clean bill of health. And it's clear he's done nothing wrong, let alone anything deserving death. So I'm going to warn him to watch his step and let him go." And what's not in Luke at this point is that he goes and gets beaten, 40 lashes, and that's when they put the crown on him and they put the robe on him. At that, the crowd went wild. "Kill him, give us Barabbas." Barabbas had been thrown in prison for starting a riot in the city and for murder. Pilate still wanted to let Jesus go, and so spoke out again, but they kept shouting back, "Crucify him, crucify him." A third time he tried. "But for what crime? I found nothing in him deserving of death. I'm going to warn him to watch his step and to let him go." But they kept at it, a shouting mob demanding that he be crucified. And finally they shouted him down. Pilate caved in and gave them what they wanted. He released the man thrown in prison for rioting and for murder, and gave them Jesus to do whatever they wanted. As they let him off, they made Simon, a man from Cyrene who happened to be coming from the countryside, carry the cross behind Jesus. A huge crowd of people followed, along with women weeping and crying. And Jesus turned to the women and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't cry for me." Now 2 others, both criminals, were taken along with him for execution. When they got to the place called Skull Hill, they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on the right, the other on his left. And Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Dividing up his clothes, they threw dice for them. The people stood there staring at Jesus, and the ringleaders made faces, taunting, "He saved others, let him save himself, the Messiah of God, ha ha ha, the chosen, ha ha ha." The soldiers also came up and poked fun at him, making a game of it. They toasted him with sour wine. "So you're the king of the Jews, save yourself." Printed over him was his sign, "This is the King of the Jews." And in John, I'm going to stop reading here. In John, it's interesting because it says that the religious leaders at the time said that Pontius Pilate wrote it wrong and said it shouldn't be the king of the Jews. It's to say that he said he's king of the Jews. They wanted that deliberation. And Pilate said, well, I wrote what I wrote. But the other one made him shut up. Have you no fear of God? One of the criminals hanging alongside cursed him. Some Messiah you are. Save yourself. Save us. But the other one made him shut up. Have you no fear of God? You're getting the same as him. We deserve this, but not him. He did nothing to deserve this. And then he said to Jesus, Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom. To which Jesus said, don't worry, I will. Today you'll join me in paradise. By now it was noon. The whole earth had become dark. The darkness lasting 3 hours. A total blackout. The temple curtain was split right down the middle. Jesus called loudly, Father, I place my life in your hands. Then he breathed his last. When the captain there saw what happened, he honored God. This man was innocent, a good man, and innocent. And all who'd come around as spectators to watch the show, when they saw what actually happened, were overcome with grief and headed home. Those who knew Jesus well, along with the women who had followed him from Galilee, they stood at a respectful distance and they kept vigil. There was a man by the name of Joseph, a member of the Jewish High Council, a man of good heart and good character. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Taking him down, he wrapped him in a linen shroud, placed him in a tomb, and chiseled into the rock. A tomb never used yet. It was the day before Sabbath, and the Sabbath was just about to begin. So that is the account of the crucifixion of Christ. And it's out of the Message. That translation I read is the parallel Bible, the Message. And what's amazing about it is that there, in the Old Testament, there's all these scriptures that talked about prophetically. I just saw this. It's sweet. That prophetically there would be a Messiah, and all of it saying, even to the point where they weren't going to break, there would be no broken bones, and there'd be a spear in his side, and all of the scripture came true. They would throw lots for his clothing. We have a ton of time. I'll read you this.
Nicodemus gave him the tomb.
See, did it say Nicodemus? Because this one says James.
And Nicodemus gave him the tomb.
Are you saying that, or is it?
The person here is saying that.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought too, but it says Joseph. I don't know why. I'm going to read you another one since we have time, guys, and then I'm going to open it up. This one is from John, okay? And it gives just a different account. And there's just different details. So it'll be interesting just as a study. You can hear both. So you'll have the one from Luke and the one from John. And if you're really interested, you can go back to Matthew and Mark and see what they said and how they said it differently. It was early morning, so Pilate came out and spoke. What charge do you bring against this man? And they said, if he hadn't been doing something evil, do you think we would be bothering you? And Pilate said, well, you take him. You judge him by your law. And they said, well, we're not allowed to kill anyone. Pilate went back into the palace and called for Jesus. He said, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered, are you saying this on your own, or did others tell you about me? And Pilate said, your people and your high priest turned you over to me. What did you do? My kingdom, said Jesus, doesn't consist of what you see around you. If it did, my followers would fight so that I wouldn't be handed over. But I am not the king. I am not that kind of king. Not the world's kind of king. So Pilate said, so are you a king or not? And Jesus answered, you tell me, because I am a king. I was born and entered the world so that I could witness to the truth. Everyone who cares for truth, who has any feeling for the truth, recognizes my voice. And Pilate said, what is truth? And then he went back out and told them, I find nothing wrong with this man. It's your custom that I pardon one prisoner at Passover. Do you want me to pardon the king of the Jews? And they shouted back, no, not this one, but Barabbas. And here it says that Barabbas was a Jewish freedom fighter. So Pilate took Jesus and had him whipped. The soldiers, having braided a crown from thorns, set it on his head, threw a purple robe over him, and approached him with, Hail, King of the Jews! They greeted him with slaps in the face. Pilate went back out again and said to them, I present him to you, but I want you to know that I do not find him guilty of any crime. Just then, Jesus came out wearing the thorn crown and a purple robe. Pilate announced, Here he is, the man! When the high priest and the police saw him, they shouted in a frenzy, Crucify, crucify. And Pilate told them, Well, you take him, you crucify him. I find nothing wrong with him. Well, they answered, We have a law, and by that law he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God. When Pilate heard this, he became even more scared. He went back into the palace and said to Jesus, Where did you come from? But Jesus gave no answer. Pilate said, Won't you talk? Don't you know that I have the authority to pardon you and the authority to crucify you? And Jesus said, You haven't a shred of authority over me except what has been given to you from heaven. At this, Pilate tried his best to pardon him, but the crowd was shouting him down. If you pardon this man, you're no friend of Caesar's. Anyone setting himself up as king defies Caesar. With Pilate heard those words, he led Jesus outside. The hour was noon, and Pilate said, Here is your king. They shouted back, Kill him, crucify him. And Pilate said, I am to crucify your king. And the high priests answered, We have no king but Caesar. Pilate caved to their demand, and he turned him over to be crucified. They took Jesus away carrying his cross. And Jesus went out to the place called Skull Hill, Golgotha, where they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side, Jesus in the middle. Pilate wrote a sign and had it placed on the cross. It read, King Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Now many people read the sign next to the place where Jesus was crucified. It was right next to the city. It was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. And the Jewish high priests objected. Don't write, they said to Pilate, the King of the Jews. Make it, this man said, I am King of the Jews. And Pilate said, I've written what I've written. When they crucified him, the Roman soldiers took his clothes and divided him up 4 ways. To each soldier a fourth, but his robe was seamless. It was a single piece of weaving. So they said to each other, Well, let's not tear it up. Let's throw dice to see who gets it. This confirming the scripture that said, They divided up my clothes among them and threw dice for my coat. Jesus' mother, his aunt, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene stood at the foot of the cross. Jesus saw his mother and the disciple he loved standing near her. He said to his mother, Woman, here is your son. And then to the disciple, Here is your mother. And from that moment, the disciple accepted her as his own mother. Jesus, seeing that everything had been completed so that the scripture record might also be complete, then said, I'm thirsty. A jug of sour wine was standing by, and someone with a sponge soaked with wine on a javelin and lifted it to his mouth. After he took the wine, Jesus said, It's done. Complete. And bowing his head, he offered up his spirit. Since it was the day of Sabbath preparation, and so the bodies wouldn't stay on the cross over the Sabbath, it was a high holiday that year. It was the high holy day that year. They petitioned Pilate that their legs be broken to speed death, and that the bodies be taken down. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man crucified with Jesus. Then they saw that he was already dead. And then the other. When they got to Jesus, they saw that he was already dead. And so they didn't break his legs. And one of the soldiers stabbed him in the side with a spear, blood and water gushing out. That those things that happened confirmed the scripture to be fulfilled. Again, he was taken off, he was wrapped in linen, and he was put in a tomb for 3 days. And then the greatest miracle of all miracles happened on Sunday, which I highly recommend you that's sweet. I highly recommend that you guys, if you're a Christian or if you're not a Christian, everybody knows what Easter is from a bunny rabbit, chocolate egg point of view. But go in and read, and take the time to go in and read all 4 accounts to hear how there was an earthquake and a giant angel, kind of like what I saw, except mine wasn't electric looking. But that's why, I mean, I can't tell you, like I'm telling a total, there's a couple thousand people that end up watching these live streams, and I'm telling you guys, as clear as anything else. I saw something on Times Square behind me that I think saved my life. And so I think Sunday morning, there's a giant, beautiful angel that tells 2 women, Mary and another Mary, that Jesus is risen. And he tells women at a time where women were not considered equal members of society, which I think is so valuable and so important. And the women go back and they tell the account. Now, back in that day, women couldn't give testimony in the court of law because they were seen as so why would God do that? He made women important in the story. And then it's not a ghost. It's Jesus in the flesh. And it's an amazing thing. And it's wild. And it's either absolute malarkey, and if you're a Christian, you're an idiot, or it's true. And it's one of the most magnificent ways that God can contact his people and talk to us and give us hope and give us grace. And so I just wanted to leave you guys with that today on Good Friday. I'm going to keep it short today. I'm going to cut this down to just a little over a half an hour. I have pitched, not this chapter, but the first 3. I just pitched to my friend Randy at Hallmark that maybe we could do this live for the network, and because there's so many fans from Hallmark on this, and it would be a lot of fun to give a voice to people. And I'm going to come back next week, and I'm going to sing with you guys, and I'm going to hear from you guys next week. So I just want to say thank you for listening to me. Thank you for hearing my heart and letting me be a big old weepy baby in this time. And I just want to say God bless you guys and my family, my wife and I and our boys. We're going to pray for the world. We're going to pray for you guys. And this community that's happening on this little Polaha Chautauqua is truly a remarkable thing for us and for me. And I'm so grateful that you guys tune in, that you're participants, that it's something that people are looking forward to. And I'm sad that it's happening only because there's a pandemic, and I'm sad that we can't do this all the time. So I'm just going to say good night to you guys. I'm going to say Good Friday. Be gentle to yourselves. Enjoy the night. Be sad if you're sad, and roll with it. But at the end of the day, know that there is hope that just defies understanding. And it's on its way, and we're going to be okay. So until next week, I'll see you throughout the week on my posts and your feedback. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Oh my gosh, I'm back.